Okay, so probably a bit hard to see, but you'll see it more on obviously the video. Two things that we'll be using, two software packages we'll be using is obviously Flash, that's the main one, and Photoshop as well for your designs. Now, we'll be using these Wacom tablets. They'll be set up for us over the break, hopefully, which is good. The only thing is we only have 6 of these tablets, so we'll be sharing them around, and you'll be using them for certain parts of your project, okay? So some you'll be using tablets for certain sections, the other sections you'll be using Flash itself to draw directly into, okay? So I'm just gonna dig up the pen for this. Where am I sitting right there? Okay. So you've used Wacoms before?
Yes.
Yes? No? Some of you? Alright. Fairly easy. Okay, it's essentially a blank tablet, and whatever I do on this tablet will then come up on the screen. So I'm using it now. I'll just do a new document, and I'll show you really, really quick. We'll just use web. Okay, so how the Wacom works is you have a pen, and the pen obviously interacts with the tablet and Photoshop here. It's essentially like using a mouse, except I can use my hands, all right? And whatever I draw comes straight up on the screen. Let's try something like that. So pretty easy. If I don't touch as heavy, can you see if I lightly touch, it's a softer, and if I push harder, it's a thicker line. All right. Some tablets as well. These ones don't do it, unfortunately. Some tablets will also have the input from the direction that you hold the pen. So if you tilt it forward or you tilt it back, it'll actually do that as well. These ones don't, but that's okay. And there we go. So a lot easier to obviously draw with one of these than a mouse, because it's exactly how you would draw on paper. Okay, so we'll be using these to work on our project. So what I'm going to do is I've quickly done a simple sketch on paper, and I'll plonk it in there. All right, and this is kind of what you will be doing, you know, for a few of your items. Here's our sketch. So you've done it on paper, you've scanned it, you're ready to go. All right. You guys know how layers work. We've done this a lot. So I'm going to quickly show you how to then get this guy and make one of those images that you're going to use in your animation. So first things first, we have this guy at the back here. All right. Then I'll do a new layer and I'll put it on top of him. And now I'm going to start to actually draw this character. Let me just zoom in a bit. All right. I'm going to draw this character for my animation. So let's just switch to a black pen. And I'll zoom in. It's a bit tricky on this screen because I have to bring the size down so you can see it on the projector. So it'll be probably a lot easier where you are. Let's just bring the opacity of that down a bit. All right. And now essentially you can just kind of trace, trace what you're going to do in here. So obviously being digital, the good thing is I can kind of do whatever I want with this and go and clean it up later. Okay, so really quick. All right, there's my go. So again, you'll go back in and you'll clean this up. You'll probably do a few layers, clean up the ear. You can get your eraser, clean up this so it's a bit nicer. Go back to your brush. So I'll just concentrate on the ear at this point. All right, go back in a little bit. Clean that. And there you go. So you'll end up doing that for the entire image. Okay? And then again with our layers, we can start to do other things. If I have my lines above it, I can start coloring this thing in. All right. Oops, sorry. So again, really easy to add some color to this. I'm just going to be really quick. Cool. All right. And let's just we'll do the eyes as another layer as well. So I'm using new layers for each different element, so then I can go back in later and erase what I have to kind of clean it up. So for instance, if I just, do too much white there, if this was all on the one layer and I rub that white out, it would obviously affect the layers below it. Because it's on a separate layer, I can clean that up and it doesn't affect what's under it. Okay, so really quick, and then I can go back in and use some of those tools that we've learned the other day, like let's go the burn tool, darken this up here. I don't know how that's coming across on the screen, probably not too well. You can darken certain sections. And we can also highlight certain sections, even raise his cheeks, all that kind of stuff. All right, so being super quick with this, but you get the idea. Cool. Then we've got our image, okay? So what we'll have at the end of the day is, get rid of all of that, we'll have this character ready to go. All right, so let's just say that's finished and that's done. We'll just crop that. There we go. And I will save that. So you've seen this before, this layout? Yeah, cool. So you do an action script 2, and then we'll begin. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on this yet because we'll start that next term. But you'll be doing your library of elements first. So you've gone through your song, your movie clip, and you figured out all the things you want to use. Then what you'll do is you'll start to design those individual elements as movie clips, okay, in this library. So let's just say one of the things in your song was a sun, okay? You want to talk about a sun. There's a sun appears and it shines and it's got a smiley face. You create that in your library first, which is down the side here. So I'm going to do a new symbol, and you make sure this is a movie clip, okay? And in this case, I'll call it sun. And then you'll get this blank canvas here. So you've got your timeline down the bottom. Again, you should be familiar with all of this from last year. And what we're going to do is create a simple animation that we're going to use in this video clip. So kind of like what they had, that kind of 2 frames back and forth animation. So again, I'll do a really, really quick one and I'll show you how we do something like that. So let's go, I don't know, sun, it could be yellow. All right, so we've got our sun there, okay. I'll just fill that in, lovely. You can see I'm at frame 1 here. And then what I might do is change that to there. Get my paintbrush. All right, and I'm going to move this forward to say frame 15, and I'm going to make a keyframe. So now what will happen is whatever I put at frame 15 will then appear. So if I go into this now and draw something like this. Okay, and then I scrub between the two, that'll appear. It'll just repeat back and forth. So I might then move to frame 30, insert a keyframe, and let's do some other stuff in here. And we can be a little bit more creative. And then we'll move up to frame 40, insert a keyframe. Oops. You can also erase stuff as well. So if I insert another keyframe here, Then we'll select that yellow color so we can get our eyedropper, get that yellow back. Go back to my paintbrush. Just get rid of those eyes. And then we'll just bring that size down again. What can I do? Alright, he's now asleep. Excellent. Alright, so now we've got our frames here. So if we play between these, it's pretty simple, but that's what we've got. So I'll just kind of repeat that. And then we'll just play that. And so that's going to keep looping in our animation. So the amount of frames that you put in here and the amount of detail that you do will show how much detail is then shown in your actual animation itself. So if you did a whole stack of frames, you could do it so it gradually changes. So let's just do another real quick example. I'll do a new symbol here. And we'll call this eye. And we'll do like an eye closing as an example, okay? And then the more frames you use, the more detailed this will be. So if I sit here and I'll just draw, I don't know, an eyeball. It's a pretty weird eye. Okay, I'm just going to, that's an eye. It's an eye. Look now, it's an eye. I haven't finished. All right, we'll get us some black here. That better? It's an eye. All right, so there's our first frame. There's our eye. Okay, and now if we wanted to make it look like this eye was closing but be quite detailed, what we would do is we do a lot more frames and we do them closer together. So I'm going to go to say, I don't know, frame 5, insert a keyframe, and this is really easy, this part. So all you do is now kind of just draw. So I'm going to draw a line across here. Okay, and eyelashes. It's eyelashes. Alright, and then I'm going to erase this whole top section. Alright, pretty easy. Now I'm going to go to the next frame. We'll go to frame 10. Insert a keyframe. Okay, go back to my brush. Put that down a little bit more. Do my eyelashes. Because I just changed the size. Erase that. Okay, obviously I'm doing this quite fast, so you'll do it a little bit better. Alright, there we go. Do another keyframe. Go back to my brush. Close it a little bit more. Do the eyelashes. Michael, I'm choosing to ignore you on purpose. Erase that. Okay. Jump forward another few frames. Insert your keyframe. And then we can just erase all of that. And then we'll just draw the lashes closed. Cool. And so now if I play that, it's a bit more detailed. Yeah? So again, the more time that you spend, the more frames that you do, the more detailed you get this animation. And it's pretty quick. It's basically just draw it as you go. And then what will happen is in your library here, you will have a whole stack of these individual clips in this library. You'll have your eye, you'll have your sun, you'll have all those different elements that you're using will be sitting in here. So I'll go back. Okay. And then, once that's all done, okay, you'll then bring all those into your animation. So if we bring back that guy, that original guy. Cool. All right, so there's our sun, there's our eye, and there's our head. All right, so we can do the same thing with these heads, or whatever image that you've done. You can animate between these images if you hand draw them. Okay, so like we saw in that clip, he'd hand drawn those changes. So if I wanted to make this animate really simply, it would be a matter of then moving this image around. So here's our keyframe. If I put in another keyframe here, and then do something with this guy, move him across up here. It'll then animate between that. Okay, so if you had different images, you would bring those in and animate between those two images. So there's two ways of doing things, okay? You can either do it how we did it by hand with this example where we've drawn the frames with actually within Flash itself, or you can do it through Photoshop where you draw a whole bunch of different images. Kim, do you want to leave as well, mate? No, actually, that wasn't a question. See you later. Excellent. So, two ways. You can either do it through Flash by keyframing it, or through Photoshop by drawing all those images separately and then placing them in. All right? And then finally, what will happen is you'll have this scene, which will be your actual animation. So within this scene, I'll show you a couple other things we'll do. So now we've dropped our eye in there. We'll just kind of sit in our scene. So the scene is the actual kind of where you'll do all the animation. So if I play on that, that'll just keep repeating and repeating and repeating because it's just sitting there, we're not doing anything with it. All right? So what you'll do is you'll start to drop in your symbols that you create onto your animation as you need them. So if I put the sun up there as well, the same thing will happen. If I hit enter on that, they'll just sit there and they'll loop through those animations that they do. Okay, so once they're in there, you will then animate these actual symbols. So
how did you animate them separately and then animate them?
I'll show you. So what happens, because these are movie clips, they're like individual little animations that are contained. Okay, so they're contained in one spot, which is like sun or eye. So it's like a mini animation, and it comes up as one image. So then when you bring that little mini animation in, you can then animate that. And so what happens is then that will play its mini animation as it plays. Does that kind of make sense?
You bring all the mini ones into the main.
Yes, into the main one, and then you animate them from there. So let's get rid of the sun. So let's say in our song, all right, the first bar is there's an eye that appears and then it floats around the screen. I don't know, whatever song. You listen to weird music, that could happen. So what you want to do is you bring your eye in here and then you start to animate this. So in frame 1, I'm going to put the eye off screen. And then in frame 55, actually we'll make it frame 60. I'll insert a keyframe. And I'll move this eye over here. Actually, there we go. So you can see, if I zoom that out, what's going to happen is that at frame 1 it's over there, at frame 60 it's over there, because that's what we told it to do. All right? But we want to move it from left to right. Now, again, this is where I said normally you would have to animate every frame and move it across, but you don't need to do that. If we just right-click this and do classic tween, it'll now move across the screen. And if I create that, there's our animation. And it's playing that movie clip in repeat as we play it across the screen. Okay? So depending on what we want to say, again, like that clip before, you could have buildings coming across and they're catching on fire while there's some cars that are driving, while there's some people that are talking. All these things are happening at once as you move across here. And it all depends on this timeline down the bottom. So what you'll have when you have your music is you'll have your music track sitting here. So you'll be able to follow that music track and you'll be adding all the symbols that you've created in at the spots they need to be, and then you'll animate those. I think I've got one that I was playing around with earlier from a student. It might make a bit more sense. What I want. All right, what have we got here? I'll show you a couple of these. It's from James. So these are some basic examples from some other students. So they're just sitting there, they're quite basic symbols. So obviously those symbols, James hasn't had time to work on this yet, so they'll appear when the words will appear and they'll animate between them. All right. So this is some Year 8 work, okay, that we were playing with earlier this week. So this is something that you should hopefully be able to achieve quite easily. But again, you can see all the stuff he's got going on here. And it keeps on going as the song goes through. So that's like a basic example. So I don't know what friends are trying there, but he's getting there. He's still working on those. So that's kind of the stuff that you'll end up doing, okay, except you guys, having used Flash before, all right, you should be far more experienced and detailed at doing this. So where those guys were doing just essentially one layer, all right, so if we go back and have a look at James's again, it's just you know, 1, maybe 2 layers going on. There's not a huge deal of animation there. What I kind of expect from you guys is a lot more detail, like what we saw in that video clip. Because you've got a lot more time to work on this. And you're going to have the holidays to plan it, so you'll have a lot more detail going on. There'll be lots of things happening in the foreground, in the middle ground, in the background, all these details happening. Yes?
You have to do the whole song.
Yes. We have a whole term on this, okay? So I think we could do the whole song. Maybe don't do, I don't know, Bohemian Rhapsody, which goes for, what, 12 minutes or something like that? Probably wouldn't use that song. Maybe choose a song about 2 to 3 minutes in length. Okay? So that's a really, really quick crash course in how we're doing this. Next term, when it comes to all these stages, like I said, I'm going to break this up into milestones, so I expect you to all hit certain points at certain times. I'll do what I've done now, bring you together, explain the topic, and then let you go. But this is a really, really quick overview of everything. Alright, any kind of questions on this? No. Alright, so this is the goal moving forward then. Go through those books today, have a read through them, watch that clip, look at the detail there, the level of detail is done. Over the holidays, or start now if you want to, thinking about the music track you want to choose, excuse me, and those symbols that appear. How are you going to visualize that music? How are you going to show that on the screen? Alright, you can even start writing your timeline. What we'll do when we come back next term is you'll be working on the timeline, the storyboards, okay? So your storyboard will be essentially one long storyboard that I could literally get a camera on top of, pan across with your music track, and I should visually see everything that's going to appear. It won't animate, obviously, because you're drawing it, but I should see everything that's going to appear. Does that kind of make sense? Kate's shaking. Alright, so your storyboard, let's say you've done the song, I don't know, give me a song. I don't know. You've done the Yellow Submarine. What you'll do is, like that video clip that we saw, alright, you're going to draw a storyboard that might be, you know, a couple of meters long that has every single element as the song plays. So you start with the submarine that's going in the water, and then there's going to be fishes appearing, and then there's a turtle, and then there's a rainbow, and a shark eats the fish, and then the submarine shrinks, and so that's all visually done on this storyboard. And you're drawing all these individual elements. So then, like I said, if I get a camera and put it on top of your storyboard, which is what I'm going to do, and run that across and play your song, I should be able to see that on the screen. Like they should link together. That's how detailed your storyboard needs to be. Yes. So, as in zooming in, zooming out. Again, just draw it as it would happen. Okay? Because then what's going to happen, if you do a good job on that storyboard, you can then take those elements directly and put them into the machine. Scan them, draw them in Photoshop, redraw them with Flash, and put them in there. So that storyboard should be enough that I can actually watch that, and here's your clip, and I can see what's going to happen. So that'll be the first milestone that we do probably when you come back from City Week. Then if you can't draw, then you can do something a bit different. I mean, you saw that animated clip from Jim Guthrie. I mean, those images were fairly basic, you know. So what will happen is you'll develop this style, this kind of, like even this eye as kind of, I don't know, quick and cruddy as it was, like that's a pretty, I still think that looks pretty cool. Like it's a scratchy kind of messy style, but have that with a lot of things going on at once. Yeah, it'll look pretty cool. Okay, so that's enough for this. That's your food for thought over the break. We've got plenty of time now to start thinking about it, and let me know how you go. Awesome. Thanks, guys.